A young boy does not become weak overnight. He is shaped slowly through repetition, tone, and emotional pressure that feels like love but functions like control. One of the earliest tools of controlling manipulative mother uses is emotional guilt. Not discipline rooted in structure, clarity, and consequence, but guilt wrapped in sacrifice, fear, and obligation. This is where obedience replaces strength and compliance replaces character. The message starts subtly. After everything I've done for you, you would break my heart if you did that? Good boys don't talk back. The boy learns quickly that his choices are not judged by whether they are right or wrong, but by how they make his mother feel. His internal compass is hijacked. Instead of asking, what is the correct action? He asks, will this upset her? That single shift changes the trajectory of his development. Healthy discipline teaches a boy self-control. Guilt-based control teaches him self-erasure. When he is punished emotionally rather than corrected behaviorally, he learns that asserting himself equals hurting someone he loves. Over time, this creates a deep association between masculinity and shame. Strength feels dangerous. Independence feels cruel. Saying no feels like betrayal. The boy becomes emotionally obedient long before he is physically capable of resistance. This dynamic trains him to suppress his instincts. When he feels anger, he swallows it. When he wants to explore, he hesitates. When he wants to challenge authority, he retreats. Not because he lacks courage, but because he has been conditioned to equate courage with abandonment. The guilt does the work of the leash. No force is needed once the emotional hook is set. The most damaging part is that this conditioning is praised. The obedient boy is called easy to raise. Meanwhile, the assertive boy is labeled difficult, selfish, or out of control. Over time, the compliant child is rewarded with approval, closeness, and emotional safety. The boy learns that love is conditional upon submission. This becomes his blueprint for all future relationships. As he grows older, this guilt-based programming follows him into adulthood. He struggles to set boundaries. He overexplains himself. He feels responsible for other people's emotions. In romantic relationships, he becomes the appeaser. He gives more than he receives. He tolerates disrespect to avoid conflict. On a deep level, he is still that boy trying not to disappoint his mother. What looks like kindness is actually fear. What looks like empathy is actually self-abandonment. He has never learned how to separate compassion from control because no one taught him that love does not require self-sacrifice of identity. No one taught him that discipline is not cruelty and boundaries are not rejection. This is not about blaming mothers. It is about understanding patterns. A mother who uses guilt often believes she is protecting her child, but protection without preparation creates fragility. A boy needs to learn how to disappoint people and survive it. He needs to feel the tension of standing his ground and not losing love. Without that experience, he grows into a man who is easily manipulated by anyone who withholds affection. Breaking this conditioning requires awareness first. The man must see that the guilt he carries is learned, not innate. He must relearn discipline, not as punishment, but as self-leadership. He must practice choosing what is right over what is comfortable. And most importantly, he must detach his sense of worth from emotional approval. Because the moment a man no longer fears disappointing others is the moment he begins to respect himself. Another powerful way of controlling manipulative mother emasculates her son is through chronic overprotection. This does not look like abuse. It looks like care. It looks like love. But beneath the surface, it quietly strips a boy of the one thing he must develop to become a strong man: trust in his own ability to handle the world. From an early age, the boy is told directly or indirectly that the world is dangerous and he is not ready for it. You'll get hurt. You can't do that on your own. Let me handle it. Each statement seems harmless, even nurturing, but repeated over years, it sends a devastating message: you are incapable without me. The boy learns that safety comes not from his own competence, but from remaining close, dependent, and compliant. Instead of being allowed to struggle, fail, and adapt, he is rescued. Instead of learning resilience, he learns avoidance. When he falls, someone rushes in before he can stand up. When he faces conflict, someone speaks for him. When he feels fear, it is reinforced rather than challenged. Over time, his nervous system becomes calibrated to caution instead of courage. This kind of mother often believes she is preventing pain. In reality, she is preventing growth. Pain is not the enemy of development, helplessness is. A boy becomes confident by testing himself against difficulty and surviving it. When those tests are removed, he never earns self-belief. He grows older, but inside he remains uncertain, hesitant, and dependent on external validation. The manipulation enters when protection becomes control. Decisions are made for him. Risks are discouraged. Independence is framed as rebellion. If he tries to assert autonomy, it is met with anxiety, guilt, or emotional withdrawal. The message becomes clear: your independence makes me unsafe. So the boy learns to shrink his ambition to maintain peace. This creates a deep internal conflict. On one hand, biology pushes him toward exploration, dominance, and self-direction. On the other, emotional conditioning punishes those instincts. The result is confusion. He feels an urge to act, but no permission to trust himself. He becomes passive not because he wants to be, but because action feels dangerous. As he enters adulthood, the effects compound. He second-guesses every decision. He looks for authority figures to tell him what to do. He avoids leadership roles. He hesitates to make moves with women. He may be intelligent, capable, and physically grown, but psychologically, he is still waiting for approval. Overprotection has trained him to outsource responsibility for his life. In relationships, this shows up as neediness and indecision. He looks to women for direction. He avoids conflict. He struggles to lead. And when challenged, he collapses instead of standing firm. Not because he lacks masculinity, but because it was never allowed to develop. What makes this especially damaging is that overprotection is often praised by society. Close bond. Loving mother. Good son. But closeness that suffocates autonomy is not healthy attachment, it is enmeshment. A boy needs separation to individuate. Without it, he cannot form a stable masculine identity. To undo this conditioning, a man must intentionally step into discomfort. He must take responsibility without permission, make decisions without reassurance, fail without rescue. He must rebuild trust in his own judgment through action, not affirmation. Competence is forged, not given. The moment a man learns that he can survive uncertainty without being protected is the moment his spine begins to straighten. A third and deeply damaging way of controlling manipulative mother emasculates her son is through emotional guilt and conditional love. This is not loud or aggressive. It is subtle, quiet, and incredibly powerful. It teaches a boy that love must be earned through obedience, self-sacrifice, and emotional suppression, and that his natural masculine impulses are a threat to connection. From a young age, the boy learns that his mother's emotional state is his responsibility. If she is upset, disappointed, anxious, or hurt, he feels it is somehow his fault. Statements like, "After everything I've done for you, you're breaking my heart," or "I only want what's best for you," become emotional weapons. They are not said to guide him, but to control him. The boy learns quickly that asserting himself causes pain in the person he depends on most. Love becomes conditional. When he agrees, complies, and stays small, he is rewarded with warmth and approval. When he disagrees, pushes back, or tries to separate, affection is withdrawn. Silence replaces connection. Sadness replaces support. The lesson is crystal clear: be good or be alone. Over time, this wires guilt directly into his sense of identity. This is devastating for masculine development. Masculinity requires the ability to withstand disapproval. A man must be able to say no, to choose his own path, even when it disappoints others. But this boy was trained to associate independence with emotional punishment. So instead of feeling grounded when he stands his ground, he feels selfish, cruel, or ungrateful. As a result, he becomes overly agreeable. He anticipates others' needs before his own. He avoids conflict at all costs. He says yes when he means no. Inside, resentment builds, but it has nowhere to go. Expressing anger feels forbidden because anger once threatened the bond that kept him safe. So he represses it, and his energy turns inward as shame. This kind of guilt-based conditioning creates a man who is easy to manipulate. Authority figures intimidate him. Romantic partners unconsciously sense his fear of abandonment. He over-explains, over-apologizes, and over-gives. He mistakes compliance for kindness and self-erasure for love, and when someone pushes his boundaries, he freezes instead of responding with strength. What makes this even more destructive is that the mother often believes she is being loving. In her mind, guilt is framed as concern, control as care, and emotional dependence as closeness. But real love encourages growth, not submission. Real love prepares a child to leave, not to stay emotionally tethered forever. The boy never learns to trust his inner authority. His moral compass is outsourced. Instead of asking, "What do I believe is right?" he asks, "Will this upset someone?" This creates a fractured man, one who looks for permission to live his own life. He may be outwardly polite and well-behaved, but inwardly he is disconnected from his power. In adult relationships, this conditioning repeats itself. He attracts partners who mirror the same dynamic, emotionally demanding, guilt-inducing, and controlling. He confuses intensity with love. He tolerates disrespect because standing up for himself feels wrong. He is not weak by nature. He is trained to betray himself. Breaking free from this pattern requires a painful but necessary shift. A man must accept that someone may be disappointed, upset, or uncomfortable with his choices, and that this does not make him bad. Guilt must be examined, not obeyed. He must learn to separate love from compliance and strength from cruelty. The day a man chooses truth over guilt is the day his masculinity begins to return. Another powerful way a controlling, manipulative mother emasculates her son is through excessive overprotection. This form of control looks loving on the surface. It is often praised by society, but beneath it lies a slow suffocation of the very traits that create a strong, capable man. Risk-taking, resilience, self-trust, and courage. From early childhood, the boy is treated as fragile. He is constantly warned about danger, failure, and consequences. "Don't do that. You'll get hurt. You're not ready for this. Let me handle it for you." The world is presented as a threatening place, and the boy is subtly framed as incapable of navigating it alone. Instead of learning through experience, he learns to fear experience. Masculinity develops through challenge. A boy must test himself against uncertainty, make mistakes, fall down, and get back up. Overprotection removes this process. When every obstacle is cleared for him, he never learns how strong he actually is. When every decision is double-checked or overridden, he never learns to trust his judgment. Over time, the boy internalizes the message, "I can't handle life without her." This creates dependency disguised as closeness. The mother becomes the source of safety, direction, and reassurance. Independence is discouraged, not openly, but emotionally. When the boy tries to act on his own, anxiety and fear rush in, feelings that were conditioned, not natural. This kind of upbringing produces a man who hesitates. He second-guesses himself constantly. Even simple decisions feel heavy. He looks for validation before acting. Instead of moving forward with confidence, he waits for certainty which never comes. He becomes risk-averse, choosing comfort over growth, safety over greatness. In social and romantic situations, this lack of edge is immediately felt. Women, on a subconscious level, are drawn to men who are grounded in themselves, men who can face uncertainty without collapsing. A man who is overprotected often radiates caution, nervousness, and overthinking. He may be kind and polite, but he lacks the calm decisiveness that creates attraction and respect. Overprotection also destroys a boy's relationship with failure. Failure becomes something terrifying instead of instructive. Since he was shielded from consequences growing up, adult failure feels catastrophic. One rejection feels like proof he is not enough. One setback feels like confirmation that he should not have tried at all. This fear keeps him playing small. What makes this dynamic especially damaging is that the mother often reinforces it emotionally. When the boy struggles, she steps in instead of stepping back. When he doubts himself, she confirms the doubt by taking over. Her identity becomes tied to being needed. His growth threatens her sense of purpose, so unconsciously, she slows it down. This creates a man who stays psychologically young. He may be physically grown, but internally he still seeks protection, approval, and guidance. He avoids leadership roles. He avoids confrontation. He avoids taking full responsibility for his life because deep down he was never taught that he could handle it. Masculinity is forged in friction. When friction is removed, strength never forms. A boy raised without risk becomes a man who avoids pressure, and a man who avoids pressure cannot command respect from others or from himself. Breaking this pattern requires deliberate discomfort. A man must start doing things before he feels ready. He must allow himself to fail without emotional collapse. He must stop outsourcing safety and start building competence. Confidence does not come from being protected. It comes from surviving what once scared you. The moment a man chooses challenge over comfort, his dormant strength begins to wake up. One of the most subtle yet impactful ways a controlling, manipulative mother can emasculate a young boy is by instilling internalized compliance and self-doubt. From early childhood, a mother who seeks control often imposes her will through guilt, emotional manipulation, or excessive criticism. These tactics are designed to ensure the child conforms to her expectations, effectively suppressing independent thought and natural assertiveness. While a boy may outwardly obey, inwardly he begins to question his own instincts and judgment, creating a fertile ground for beta traits to develop. When a mother constantly critiques or dictates a child's choices, even in seemingly minor matters, the child learns to doubt his own decision-making abilities. Decisions about friends, hobbies, or even minor daily actions are subtly controlled, and the boy internalizes the belief that his thoughts and feelings are secondary to hers. Over time, this pattern fosters a dependency on external validation. He becomes conditioned to seek approval rather than act from personal conviction, which directly undermines the development of masculine confidence and autonomy. Guilt is one of the most potent tools in this form of manipulation. A mother may frame her expectations as moral or emotional imperatives, creating a sense that disobedience or independence causes harm or disappointment. For example, a boy may be scolded for pursuing an activity she deems unnecessary, told that his choices are selfish, or made to feel responsible for her emotional state. The emotional weight imposed conditions him to prioritize her needs over his own, reinforcing submissive behavior. This internalized guilt can persist well into adulthood, influencing relationships, career choices, and self-perception, leaving him vulnerable to manipulation by others. Another key aspect of internalized control is the undermining of emotional expression. A manipulative mother often discourages displays of anger, assertiveness, or ambition, labeling them as rude or inappropriate. By suppressing natural emotional responses, a boy learns to mask his true feelings, avoid confrontation, and prioritize harmony over personal empowerment. This suppression stifles the development of healthy assertiveness and the ability to stand up for oneself, critical components of masculine energy. Over time, the boy may equate submission and people-pleasing with love and acceptance, further cementing beta tendencies. Criticism disguised as guidance is another method by which internalized control takes hold. Constant feedback about what he is doing wrong or how he should behave reinforces the idea that his instincts are inadequate. Even when the mother frames criticism as concern or helping him improve, the underlying effect is the same eroding trust in his own abilities. This makes the child hyper-aware of potential judgment, cautious in action, and reliant on external cues rather than internal decision-making. Ultimately, the long-term effect of this internalized control is that the boy grows into a man who hesitates to assert himself, fears conflict, and struggles with self-confidence. The manipulative mother may not even intend to completely break him, but the consistent pattern of control and emotional conditioning leaves a lasting imprint, shaping a personality that prioritizes pleasing others over pursuing personal power. Recognizing this dynamic is the first step toward reclaiming autonomy and building a foundation of masculine strength that is self-directed rather than externally dictated. Internalized control from a manipulative mother can quietly erode independence, but awareness and conscious effort can break the cycle and restore the natural assertiveness and confidence every man is capable of. The final and perhaps most critical aspect of maternal emasculation is how a controlling, manipulative mother can leave lasting effects that follow a boy into adulthood, affecting his relationships, career, and sense of self-worth. By the time a boy grows into a man, the patterns of control and manipulation he experienced can unconsciously shape his behavior, creating a man who struggles with indecision, people-pleasing, and a lack of assertiveness. These outcomes are not inevitable, but without awareness and deliberate effort, the cycle can perpetuate, leaving him dependent on external validation and vulnerable to further manipulation, both by women and by other authority figures. Understanding this dynamic and actively working to break free is essential to reclaiming masculine identity. A manipulative mother teaches a boy that his feelings, desires, and autonomy are secondary to her needs. This lesson, repeated over years, ingrains a subconscious belief that submission equals safety and approval, while asserting oneself is dangerous or unacceptable. Many men carry this into adulthood, finding it difficult to set boundaries, speak their mind, or prioritize their own goals. In relationships, this can manifest as chronic approval-seeking behavior, excessive tolerance of disrespect, or avoidance of conflict, all of which undermine masculinity and personal authority. Recognizing that these patterns originate in early maternal influence is the first step toward change. Breaking the cycle begins with self-awareness and reflection. The man must honestly assess how maternal behaviors shaped his patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior. Which decisions did he make to appease his mother rather than follow his instincts? In which areas does guilt or fear of disapproval still influence his actions? By identifying these patterns, a man can distinguish between his authentic self and the conditioned responses that were imposed upon him. Awareness alone begins the process of reclaiming control because it shifts power from unconscious influence back to conscious choice. The next step is establishing boundaries. This does not mean cutting off relationships entirely, although that may be necessary in extreme cases. Instead, it involves creating emotional and practical limits that protect one's autonomy. A man must learn to assert his choices without guilt, decline requests that compromise his priorities, and separate his self-worth from approval-seeking behaviors. By consistently enforcing these boundaries, he retrains his mind and energy to operate from a position of strength rather than compliance, gradually reversing the emasculation he experienced as a boy. Self-discipline and personal growth are essential tools in this reclamation. Engaging in structured activities, physical training, career advancement, and skill development builds competence and confidence. Competence reinforces a sense of self-efficacy, while personal growth demonstrates that his life is his own, driven by goals and values rather than maternal control. Each success becomes a reinforcement of his autonomy, restoring internal authority that was previously undermined. Finally, cultivating emotional resilience is critical. A man must acknowledge the emotional wounds inflicted by a manipulative mother without allowing them to dictate his actions. Healing requires patience, reflection, and sometimes professional guidance. By embracing emotional strength, a man learns to respond to challenges with composure rather than react out of fear, guilt, or ingrained submission. This emotional mastery is a hallmark of masculine energy and signals to the world, especially women, that he operates from independence, integrity, and self-possession. Breaking free from maternal manipulation is not merely about rebellion. It is about reclaiming the natural masculine identity that was suppressed. Awareness, boundaries, discipline, and emotional resilience allow a man to step fully into his power, live authentically, and ensure that past manipulation no longer controls his present or future. Reclaiming masculine identity from the effects of a controlling mother is a conscious journey, but it is the final step to living with confidence, autonomy, and unshakable self-respect.